But let's get started. So again, if you haven't already, please introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, where you're from, one thing bringing you joy. This week, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. One, this event is approved for 1.0 CFRE credits. At the end of the session, we will drop a survey in the chat. You can fill out that survey, and that is how you might get, um, or that's how we will keep records. And in the rare case that you get audited for CFRE, we will be there to back you up. Here's the agenda today. So I'm going to do some quick intros. We have an extremely special guest today. Some of you have heard Josh before. Josh is one of the best thinkers in direct mail, and particularly writing amazing direct mail. And so this is a treat for me, and I hope it's a treat for you. But Josh is here on his own accord. We are not paying him except in adoration and gratitude. And so we're just very lucky to have him as well. Quick intros. My name is Patrick, lucky to be the co-founder and co-CEO of FreeWill alongside Jenny, pictured here. As I mentioned before, I am in the Dumbo neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. Jenny is all the way out in Seattle with her beautiful two kids and husband. FreeWill, as some of you might know, is now by far the largest estate planning tool in the United States, as well as the largest plan giving solution trusted by 2,300 leading nonprofits, including many of you, including folks like the American Diabetes Association, Greenpeace, Susan G. Komen, Amnesty International, American Red Cross, featured in publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Good Housekeeping, New York Times, etc. Enough about that. Please give me one moment to say how great the FreeWill team is and how lucky we are to have them. Nearly $13 billion raised for nonprofits to date. Again, 2,300 nonprofit partners and more than half a millennium of combined fundraising experience, which is a lot of fundraising experience and more every year. A lot of wonderful faces. And then one more shout out to my dear colleague Phoebe down in Austin, Texas, where I assume it's getting gradually cooler. And Phoebe put a ton of work into helping Josh and I put this together. One thing we love to do because we are just so grateful that you are here is to give away some of our favorite books. This is not one of my favorite books. This is one of Josh's favorite books. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my list. And so The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, which some of you have read. Tracy says it's a great book. If anyone has dissenting opinions, feel free to give those as well. Lola says it's great. Barbara's read it. Susan from Chicago says this is one of her favorite books ever. Nan says it's good, which is great. It's wonderful. Okay, great. So the way this works is at the end of the session, again, same place you get your CFRE credits. Make a note in the survey if you'd like a chance to get a copy. We asked Josh what some of his favorite books are, and that was really special to us. So we also asked you how your week is going. And so generally, here's what we see, relatively flat from last week. End of summer is hitting a couple of people hard, so check in with your folks. And just a little bit lower in terms of confidence about hitting our goals this year, but hopefully that will shoot up after you see this. And there are going to be a couple of key takeaways. I've already gone through the slides that Josh provided. There are going to be a couple key things where if you really lock it in, these are potentially 10, 20, 50% increases in the amount of money you will raise from your direct mail, right? So pay attention to Josh, and hopefully you are feeling more confident after this session. With that, I would like to introduce our extremely special guest. Josh, feel free to come on video just to give you 1 second to make sure that's working. There he is, looking great. A combination of love and American flags, Josh's great hair, lots of good things going on here. Josh Alcorn is the co-producer of the nonprofit Storytelling Conference, which is in October, is that right?
November 13th, 14th, and 15th.
November 13th, 14th, 15th. In?
San Diego, California.
November, lovely time to be in San Diego. Certainly more lovely than many places that folks are all for. So we'll talk more about that in a second. But I'm just going to introduce Josh, and then I will turn it over to him relatively shortly. But Josh is one of the smartest thinkers in nonprofit fundraising across the board, with a extreme specialty in direct mail, in the construction and writing of direct mail. So we're going to hear a lot of it from him. I've known Josh for quite a long time. Josh was in Democratic politics for a while, worked very closely with President Biden, then Senator Biden, helped to run the Beau Biden Foundation for the Protection of Children. So working to prevent child abuse in all forms, which was very, very important work, and has done tons of amazing things. Also worked for the late, great Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. And those of you that are especially attuned to politics know that one, Harry Reid was a wild, wild dude, also a pretty accomplished boxer, but second of all, was known as one of the greatest fundraisers in political history. And so Josh got to learn uh, at the sort of feet of one of the greatest. And so he's bringing a lot of that to us. Um, when we asked you if your org runs a direct mail program, how important is it to your fundraising strategy? And 56% of you say it is very important. So we are going to dive in for you all. What percentage of your organization's fundraising comes from direct mail? Well, 8% of you say more than half, right? 22% of you say a quarter to half, 26% say 11% to a quarter. Some of you say 1 to 10%, and 8% say none. We don't have a direct mail program, right? So for those folks, especially that 8%, that 26%, that 26%, and 22%, all of these, let's make sure to key in here as well. How effective do you think direct mail is at generating gifts compared to digital? A lot of people say much more effective. Some folks say about the same, and now 21% say less effective. How many direct appeals does your organization send in a typical year? A lot of you say 1 to 2, and a lot of that 1 to 2 is going to be at end of year. Some of you say 3 to 4, and 15% say 5 plus, right? So pretty significant here. We'll talk about what numbers might be the right fit, how you might sequence that. And by the way, if you have less budget and you want to pull one out, which one should you be skipping? What's the biggest challenge? 25% of you say creating compelling content. 12% say donor fatigue or over mailing. 10% says, I don't know when to time it or schedule it. 28% says cost and ROI. 21% says limited staff capacity. And some of you have some other reasons. All right, so Josh, I'm going to stop my screen, stop sharing, give it all over to you, and take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Phoebe. And hello, everyone. So glad to be with y'all today. Um, Patrick's just been a great friend for a very long time, and I could spend the next 20 minutes talking about how much I love him and how much I've learned from him. When I was a frontline fundraiser, the Bo Biden Foundation was probably one of the, I don't know, first handful of nonprofits that signed up with FreeWill. So those of you who are FreeWill customers, you're in the right spot. And anybody who listens to Patrick for any amount of time knows that he's one of the smartest people in the nonprofit world, in the world, I would say. But y'all are very lucky. So it's great to be here today. I'm going to pull up my slides in a second. I just wanted to point out two quick things. I love the data that Patrick shares at the beginning of these webinars. And 40%, roughly 40%, do not send direct mail or, I'm sorry, do not have a direct mail program, or it accounts for less than 10% of their budget. That surprises me. To me, that says either you're leaving money on the table or you just don't have a lot of donors. But everybody should be sending whatever amount of donors they have, some sort of fundraising mail appeal through the mail, especially at year end. And then the other thing that jumped out at me is that I think it was 12% said that one of the things holding them back from communicating more with their donors or asking more through the mail is donor fatigue. And I can tell you that there is no such thing as donor fatigue for the vast majority of the 1,200 people on this call today. If you're at an organization that sends 12 appeals a year or 15 appeals a year, so, one every 3 or 4 weeks, and a handful of newsletters a year and emails every day, okay, then you might need to worry about donor fatigue. But those of you who are sending 4 or 5 appeals a year, you're not worried about donor fatigue. And those of you who are sending 1 or 2 emails, appeals a year, definitely not worried about donor fatigue. Donor fatigue can sometimes be an excuse for, I don't have enough time to do it. And so that's a real problem. I don't have enough time to do it. But your donors want to hear from you. They're your donors for a reason, because they love the work that you do and the outcomes you create, and they are not interested in hearing you. Double negative there. Sorry, that's not usually the way I roll. Okay, let me pull up my PowerPoint and get rolling here. First, got to get it set to start. And then slideshow. Start. I was tinkering with this until the very last second. So here we go. Everybody, let me know that you can see my slides here. Looks like good. Okay. How to refresh your direct mail for stronger year end. Folks, I'm going to talk about how to refresh and update and so I'm not going to teach you how to write a good appeal. There's other opportunities for you to learn that, other people who are great at that. I'm going to give you some tips for making your direct mail raise you the most money this year end. To help you have a stronger year end. So if you were here with me last year, maybe you've learned some of these tips. This is sort of a deeper dive into what I shared last year. Here's our schedule, our calendar, what we're going to be working through today. I'm going to run through what I suggest is sort of the ideal direct mail schedule for you. That'll include email. I'm going to show you an example of what a good appeal looks like and a couple bad appeals in hopes that you send the good one and not one of the bad ones. I'll give you a tip and then four tips. One on how to get bigger gifts, one thing you can do to get bigger gifts from all of your donors this year. And then I'll share a tip for major donors, a tip for mid-level donors, and a tip for mass donors. And then I hope there will be enough time for a very robust Q&A. A lot of folks here, probably going to be a lot of questions, but I'm excited to answer as many of them as I possibly can. So use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen to leave to ask your questions. All right. Slide number one. Here's the year-end fundraising calendar. Take a screenshot of this. You'll get the slides afterwards if you don't want to be screenshotting. But here's what I suggest you do. Everybody here should be sending at least one year-end fundraising appeal. I suggest you send two at a minimum, but most all of us should definitely be sending one. I want you to mail that on November 25th. That way it arrives right around Black Friday, right? So November 25th, I believe, is the Tuesday. Yes, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So drop it in the mail or have it mailed, have your printer mail it that day. Those of you who have sort of a local-ish list, it should be there on Black Friday. We can talk more about how you should send these as we move through this presentation, but that's the idea. Send it on the 25th so it lands in your donors' mailboxes around Black Friday or Small Business Saturday. Then I want you to take that same appeal and send it to your everybody in your email list on November 29th. So that's the Saturday, that's Small Business Saturday. That will ensure that donors who are opening their mailbox and seeing your appeal are also opening their inbox, looking at their phones, and seeing an email. Same thing, just formatted a little bit differently, linking to your website instead of including a reply card, but it's basically the same thing. If you're worried about Giving Tuesday and you have something going on that you're doing a bunch of emails over that Thanksgiving weekend for Giving Tuesday, totally fine. Do your Giving Tuesday stuff and send this chaser email on December 4th. So that's the Thursday after Giving Tuesday. Then I want you to send,
I'm going to hop in with one question that we're getting in the chat,
yeah.
which is, are we talking first class mail or are we talking bulk mail?
Um, let's see. That really depends on your budget and the size of your list. I suggest to most small and medium-sized nonprofits that they're sending with maybe like 1,200 donors or fewer, that they send all of their mail first class. It's kind of a crapshoot when nonprofit bulk rate mail is being delivered. I know my post office delivers all that mail on Thursdays. And so every Thursday I walk down to my mailbox and I have a stack of mail from nonprofits. It all comes on the same day. So if you send it first class, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you have a better idea of when it will arrive. If you
That's
have
great.
to do nonprofit bulk rate because of the size of your list or expense, then definitely do that for sort of donors $500 and less, and donors $500 or more, pay that extra to put that stamp on there so you have a better idea of when it'll get there.
Sounds great. So first class mail, November 25th.
Yep.
And then
And if you do
chaser
have to do
email.
nonprofit bulk rate, you got to mail it a little bit earlier. So
Exactly.
just,
Okay, great.
yeah.
And then if you could just define chaser email, and then I will let you get back
Yeah.
to your journey.
Chaser email is an email version of your appeal. So it's the same content that you have in your fundraising appeal, just formatted for email. So you still have bolds and you still have underlines, but you're linking folks to your donation page, and it's as if it were an email. So it's not formatted like it's a letter.
Great. Awesome. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thank you,
There we go.
Josh.
Thank you for those clarifying questions. I am not looking at chat, so I appreciate the clarifying questions there, Patrick. The next thing I want you guys to do is most of us should be sending a second appeal. So that is, pretty much the same thing as your first appeal, sent a little bit later in December. I'm suggesting you with a first class stamp, mail it on December 8th. You're doing nonprofit bulk rate. You want to mail that a little bit earlier. But it's basically the same thing. You're asking the donor to do the same thing. There's the same problem that exists that their gift will solve. And it's just a little bit shorter. It's a little bit more urgent. And typically, these second appeals raise about 30% of what your first appeal raises. And so this is why it's maybe not for everyone. Do that math. If your first appeal is going to raise $100,000, your second appeal will raise about $30,000. That's worth it to me. If your first appeal is going to raise $10,000 and your second appeal is going to raise then your second appeal will raise about $3,000. That then maybe it's not the juice is not worth the squeeze, as my old boss Harry Reid would say. I think probably for $3,000, if you have a small list, it's not going to cost you that much to mail. Totally worth doing it, but you have to. That's basically the math, and so you just want to run those filters and decide if you want to spend the extra money. So those are the dates. Giving Tuesday happens in between those. The reason we're communicating so much during year end is because our donors are incredibly generous this time of year. And a lot of nonprofits are mailing and emailing their donors as well. So the more you're engaging with your donors, the more they're seeing your fundraising in the mail, on social media, in emails, the more likely they are to make a gift. You're sort of breaking through the noise. Volume, I always say volume wins in these situations. And the more you're talking about something, the more your donors know it's a problem, and the more they know it's important to you. And because they're your donors, it's important to them too. So definitely do as much as you can on the left side of the screen, including Giving Tuesday. Then I'm going to talk about this in my tip for mass donors. It's really cool to send a third appeal. It's almost like it can be a postcard. It can be kind of fun. It can be kind of cute. And that, if you're going to send it, I suggest you mail it on December 24th as a postcard, figuring out that it would land, a couple days before the end of the year. Again, I'll show you an example of that. And then, because donors are especially generous on the last 3 days of the year, all of us should be sending a robust year-end email campaign. Probably at least 3 emails. Some organizations might, excuse me, want to send 5, but you should send one email on December 29th, one email on December 30th. Oops, there's a typo there. And then 1 or 3 emails on December 31st. This sounds like a lot, right? You got to take the time to write these emails. It can be a lot, but it is totally worth it. A lot of money comes into organizations who send, 3 or 4 or 5 emails over the course of the last few days. Volume wins, folks. Donors are moving fast. They're busy, especially on those last 3 days of the year. So the more you send, the more likely they are to see. And so that's my suggestion. 10 a.m., 10 a.m. And then on December 31st, again, sorry for that typo, 3 emails, one at 10, one at 2, one at 5, that says something like, before you go out to celebrate the end of the year or ring in 2026, please click here to make a gift. Okay, so that's the calendar. That's the schedule. Happy to answer questions about that when we get to it. Here is an example of what a good fundraising appeal should look like. I'm going to spend a little bit more time going through sort of the first 4 or 5 paragraphs of this letter so that you guys can understand what makes a very good fundraising appeal. But first, let's zoom out and just sort of look at how this visually looks on the page. It is clean. There are paragraphs of varying lengths. It's not all the same size paragraph. There's things that are underlined, things that are bold. We're calling out with little icons and graphics. We're telling our donors where to read. Our donors are scanners. They're not going to read the letter from the top to the bottom. They're going to look up here. They're going to read the first couple paragraphs. They're going to see more on the other side. So they're going to flip over. They're going to see this little 2x. They're going to read that. They're going to read the PS. And they might come back to the first page, right? So you want to be using bolding and emphasis and color to direct your donor's eyes to the paragraphs that are the most important. And what are the most important paragraphs? These are the paragraphs where you're talking about the problem that exists that you're asking donors to solve with their gift. You want to be emphasizing the ask sentences, and you want to be emphasizing what the donor's gift will do. Ideally, you're doing all 4 of those things in the first 4 or 5 paragraphs. So let's just take a quick look at these first 4 paragraphs so you can see what I mean. Dear Josh, this holiday season, a child's going to get a smartphone or an iPad as a gift. And as soon as that child powers on the device, thousands of online predators will be waiting. These predators are skilled hunters ready to lure and groom the unsuspecting child. With just a few clicks, the child will be exposed to dangers they're not prepared to face. That's where you come in. Will you make a gift of $6.25 today to protect that child from an online predator? Thanks to a group of donors as generous as you, gifts before December 31st will be doubled, matched dollar for dollar. So right there, we got the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, right? We know what the problem is. Kid's going to get a device, turn it on, and engage with a bunch of, or be at the mercy of a bunch of online predators. We know what the donor's gift will do. It will protect that child from an online predator. We know that that gift will be matched. That's a big deal too. And the donor is being asked to make a gift. So if you're doing those first four things, those four things in the first 4 or 5 paragraphs, you're going to have a successful appeal. If the first 4 or 5 paragraphs of your appeal are talking about how great the donor was for their last gift, all the important work that your organization has done this year, the new board members that you've added, the new building that you're building, uh, that's going to distract from the problem that you're asking donors to solve with their gift. Savvy, sophisticated organizations know that the donors are going to read the first couple paragraphs. They're going to read what you have bolded and emphasized, and they're putting the important information in their appeals in those places. Look at this underlined paragraph over here with the 2x. Will you send in a special gift before December 31st to protect Tara from an online predator? All gifts received before the end. So that summarizes the letter right there. The PS perfectly summarizes the letter down here. I'll, I hope that's helpful. I don't want to spend too much more time because there's a bunch of other tips I want to share, but that's the makings of a good appeal. You guys can screenshot this and figure out, reverse engineer what's going on in these paragraphs and follow that template
Josh,
there.
I'm hopping in. Sorry.
Go
This
for it, man.
this is just the most important takeaway, I think, in all of giving, is that a lot of nonprofits treat their donors like they're part of a fan club. Like, hey, here's all the awesome stuff we did this year. Nope. Think of the nonprofit as the vessel to exchange money into impact that they want to have, right? So they go to work, they earn money, you help turn their money into impact, and that's the sort of model you want. This is a problem, right? And a lot of people don't spend enough time on the problem. They spend enough time on the solution. They want to talk about all the great things they're doing, but the one thing that Josh has said in the past is sort of think about it like an action movie, right? That this is what's happening right now, and your dollars can do this right now. And I don't, Josh, I don't know if you're going to cover this, and I'm stealing your thunder, but one of the aha moments for me when I talked to Josh in the past was think about thank you notes as an action movie. Josh, you talking about thank you notes at all?
I'm not, so go ahead.
Okay, great. So when someone gives you $100, don't say, thanks so much for your tax deductible gift. Like, we really appreciate you. Say your $100 is being put immediately to use protecting kids from online predators. It's put immediate to use to help more of our community appreciate the great art that we have. Immediately to use on life-saving research around lung cancer. And all of this sort of action movie vibes are way better than this sort of like thank you for supporting our great work and how great we are. Okay. All right, Josh. Sorry.
You
I
got it,
will
man.
promise to interrupt at least a few more times. But this is really important. And I find that it's one of the biggest mistakes that sort of young or less experienced fundraisers make, but also older fundraisers and more
Yeah,
experienced fundraisers make it as well.
yeah, for sure. I mean, not talking about the problem is one of the symptoms of a calcified, sort of entrenched organization that doesn't want to admit that there's a problem in the community. But all of our nonprofits were started because there was something going on in our community that the founder of your organization didn't like. There was a problem that they wanted to solve. And so they created this nonprofit. They started solving the problem. They couldn't do it all by themselves. So they hired staff, they asked people for money, and their organization grew from that. But somewhere along the line, too many of us became uncomfortable talking about the problem because then we didn't look like we had our acts together to solve the problem. So I intellectually, I understand why people don't like talking about the problem that the donor's gift will solve, that their organization exists to solve. But the fundraiser in me says you're raising a lot less money if you're not talking about the problem and reminding donors that their gift will do that thing. So thank you, Patrick, for that interlude. Your appeals should not look like this. So on the left, we have the wall of text. I wrote a book, by the way, guys. You can scan that QR code if you want to purchase the book. I wrote it with my friends Stephen and Chris. It's a little, I forget what these are called, mini book, small book, something like that. And in it, we talk about, it's called the Golden Appeal. We talk about the 8 kinds of appeals that don't work. And these are just 3 of them, right? So the wall of text is an example of an appeal that doesn't work because donors don't know what's important. It's all sort of super small font. You're squeezing everything onto one page because you believe you have this misconception that donors don't read 2-page letters. And so you try and squeeze everything with really thin margins and really small font, and donors don't know what to read. See a lot of those appeals at year end, especially organizations who don't ask a lot or aren't mailing their donors a lot or frequently. Then we have an organizational focused appeal where you're talking about what the organization has done and your programs and your mission and the impact you have in the community, as opposed to talking with you centered language where you're talking about what the donor's gift will do and what their values are and what they care about in the community and how their gift is needed today. Then we have, I think, the third most common appeal this time of year is a thanks with reporting. Again, organizations who don't communicate very often with their donors try and do everything all in one appeal at the end of the year, in one letter at the end of the year. So you start with a little bit of thanking. Thank you for your support this year. Thank you for all that you've done. Because of you, then you talk about what has happened, what your organization has done. Because of you, we did this and we did this and this thing happened. And oh, by the way, will you make a gift? At the very end. And as I just talked about, donors aren't going to read your whole letter. And if they see thank you in the first paragraph and they see a little bit of good news somewhere throughout the letter, they're not going to think that what you're sending them is an appeal and that you're asking them for money. So they'll put it away and they won't send in a gift and you'll miss your fundraising goals. Okay, so now we're going to get into tip section. I got 30 minutes, plenty of time here. I got 4 tips for you. The first tip is I want you guys to get the best gift from all of your donors this year. And in all of the research I've read and all of the fundraising I've done over the course of my life, whether it's political fundraising or nonprofit fundraising, donors give big gifts if they know that their last gift made a difference. These are your returning donors, right? So I believe that many of us didn't ask enough this year. A bunch of craziness happened in the first 6 months of the year. There was economic uncertainty. There was all this. We don't know. A lot of us had grants cut. Perhaps if we do international work, funding from USAID was chopped. So there was just a lot of weirdness and strangeness in the first 6 months of the year. So it wouldn't surprise me if many of you folks didn't send an appeal in February, March, April. There's little dips that we saw in Patrick's chart of your confidence in reaching your goals, right? February, March, April, those were down times. So if you skipped an appeal, you're running a little bit behind. And so you really need to have a very strong year-end fundraising season. You also may have not communicated enough to your donors on the impact of their gift. So I want you to do this. Scan that QR code, get a free guide on how to tell a before and after story. And I want you to email everybody on your email list this before and after story. There was some crisis, something was going on, there was a problem that needed to be solved. Then the next part of your before and after story, you're going to talk about the donor made a gift, right? This was the turning point. And now some sort of transformation has occurred. This is the impact, the outcome that your organization creates. Very simple. I'm going to give you an example in just 1 minute, but a very simple before and after story that lets your donors know that their last gift or that their previous giving, let's say it like that, made a difference, that there was some transformation that occurred because of their giving. If you're telling that story in September and October, and then you ask your donors in November and December, they're going to remember, oh, that organization does great work. My gift made a difference. They're more likely to make it a year-end gift. I'll show you an example of this in action, but scan the QR code. It's free, no email required. You can get the guide. It's totally free from the storytelling conference. So here's what this looks like in practice, okay? In your first paragraph, it wasn't Harry Reid, but it was one of my mentors many years ago, probably like in grade school, said, before you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them, right? You know, that old saying. So in the first paragraph of your before and after story email, I want you to completely summarize the story. Tell me what life was like before, tell what life was like after because of the donor's gift, and give the donor credit. Then you got a couple of paragraphs where you're telling the story, and then you're going to tell the donor what you just told them. Give praise to the donor, summarize the before and after, okay? So I'm going to show you an example. This is such an easy thing for you guys to do. You can send a before and after story once a month to your donors over email. You can send it once a week. I know there's organizations that have sort of, we call them Friday photos, where the photo is the before and after. So just, you want to be reporting to your donors, and the before and after story is a great way to do it. Let me show you an example. This is from an organization called Roots Ethiopia. Megan, a longtime friend of mine, she sends an email like this just about every month where she's, well, let's read it. When I first saw these photos, my heart sank. 300 tiny learners, the youngest and most vulnerable students, crowded into a dirt floor with acacia branch benches. No chairs, no tables, just dusty walls and packed earth beneath them. This room had 300 kids. It wasn't a classroom, it was a stark reminder of how much work remains to be done to ensure children in Ethiopia have a quality education. Our little list learners deserve so much more than this. This is the before. This is what life was like before. Donor made a gift. Thankfully, you are here to make a difference. Today, these same children walk into a bright, clean classroom, and then we go into the after. Okay? Here's the before. This is the problem that exists in Ethiopia that Roots Ethiopia solves. On the other side, we have the after. This is what life is like now for these children because the donor made a gift. Donor reads this email, they feel great about their previous giving, and they're a lot more likely to make a gift at year end. So everybody, all of us, somewhere in our organization has a story like this. It might be a little bit harder. I understand that Roots Ethiopia is dealing with kids and education, international stuff. That's before and afters are really sharp and contrasting there. Got to do a little bit of work for those of us in the arts, those of us doing conservation or advocacy work to find these before and afters, but that guide will definitely help you settle on those before and after stories. But send this to your donors as soon as you can. Maybe if you have time, send 2 or 3 before November 25th when you mail your year-end appeal. Okay, I did that in 5 minutes. I'm feeling pretty good as we move into my major donor tip. Um, so major donors typically are going to, in times of crisis, times of uncertainty, are going to hold back their giving a little bit. And so we saw this, many of us, in February, March, April, May. But by the time we got into sort of the summer months, major giving sort of picked back up, right, as things sort of steadied out. Um, they're doing great now. The stock market is through the roof, right? I didn't check this morning, but I'm sure I would have known if the stock market crashed yesterday. Um, they're doing great. So I want you to be really leaning into your major donor giving this year. Because the stock market is doing great, you should definitely be leaning into other ways to give for your major donors. So on the left side here, I have an example of a full page reply device. I encourage all of you to be sending a full page reply device to your major donors. Major donors who you're not meeting with and asking face to face for a gift. You're using your direct mail to drive that giving. Sending them a full page reply device makes it feel a little more important. You can see at the top of this, again, screenshot this, you'll get the slides in a swipe file with examples you can pull from. But, this is a reply form for Josh Alcorn. That feels like it was made especially for me, right? Um, and then you have your sort of traditional standard reply devices. I can answer any questions about that when we get to Q&A. But because the stock market is great, because your major donors are doing so well, they may have some appreciated assets they need to, I was going to say dispose of, but transfer to you, right? To help them in the long run with their tax and financial planning. So on the back side of this full page reply device is an example of an other ways to give document. I love it when organizations include this on the back side of the full page reply device. You're going to get legacy gifts, the gift through your will or estate, appreciated stock, donor advised funds, QCDs. Patrick's back because he probably has an example of this as well that you share with your clients and others.
I just come back to emphasize how important the second page is. The many of you are familiar with the research from Dr. Russell James that shows that people that raise these types of gifts, these asset-based gifts, actually grow 6 times faster than people that are only taking money. And what we've seen is that by far the fastest way to get larger gifts is to change the way that people give. I think this page is great. You should feel free to copy it. One thing I would suggest, and actually I think next week, maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, our webinar is actually specifically on this with a bunch of experts on a panel. But think about that headline and think about instead of saying other ways to make a gift, you might say smart ways to make a gift to, or tax advantage ways to make a gift to, or other ways to make a gift that may offer extra tax advantages. And you need this sort of reason why. But
Hmm.
there's almost $300 billion sitting in donor advised funds. There is trillions upon trillions of dollars sitting in the stock market and a massive appreciation. This is so, so, so important. And my guess is that many of you are not doing this with your major donors. So really think about how do we incorporate more of these smarter gifts with our major donors.
Bingo,
Gosh.
bingo. I love that smarter ways to make a gift. That's just That's why I love Patrick.
I mean, this is what you know this from politics, right? It's not just, hey, vote for me. It's compared to the other guy,
Yeah.
right? Your old boss used to say, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. Like, cash is actually not a very useful way to give for most people.
Yeah.
People don't know that. So we need to say smarter ways to give or something that's like extra benefits here.
Yeah.
So really, really important.
And two, like this is my major donor tip, but if you have the capacity, if you have the budget, I would send this same reply device to your mid-level donors, donors who are given $500 and up. Those are the folks for whom cash gifts may be a little bit more challenging, but who have, a donor advised fund or who can donate some appreciated stock or probably maybe potentially, I mean, I don't have the ability to do a QCD at this point in my age, right? Younger folks certainly don't, but this could definitely go a long way for your mid-level donors too, if you have the budget. By the way, I should have said this earlier. Well, I'll get to it at the end. All right, mid-level tip. Let's see. Headline: Mid-level donors who are giving you between $500 and $1,000. That's roughly what I call mid-level donors. You may have different sort of budgetary or gift ranges there, but generally speaking, between 500 and 1,000. Those donors, by and large, for the most part, I would imagine, are all those qualifications. Many of those donors are major donors to other organizations. So they know what it's like to be treated as a major donor. If you can personalize and customize their year-end fundraising package, so the thing that you send them through the mail, and make it feel like it was touched by a human, make it feel like it was generated just for them, they're going to think that they're being treated as a major donor to your organization and make a larger gift. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of another full page reply device. But do these three things: send a cover letter to your mid-level donors. Do that for your major donors too, but send a cover letter to your mid-level donors, explaining what's in the letter. If you have the capacity and the time, write a little handwritten PS on that letter. Stuff it in the envelope yourself, seal it, handwrite the front of the envelope, mail it with a first class stamp in a 9 by 12, so larger envelope. That's going to stand out in mailboxes. And for donors of the $500 and up, standing out in the mailbox is going to help you out a lot because they're going to make larger gifts. Their average gift will be a little bit higher. And if they're seeing your letter and opening it, response rates are going to go up too. So I'm going to give you an example of both of these things. But the top line here is your mid-level donors are probably making major gifts to other organizations. Your mid-level donors are the best pool of prospects you have for your major donor pipeline as well. Sort of a sidebar there, but do everything that you can to personalize and customize the fundraising that you send those mid-level donors. So here's an example of what I mean. Here's a cover letter. Again, you'll get an example of this in the swipe file. Screenshot it if you want. Dear Josh and Brianna, you're one of the Beau Biden Foundation's closest friends. You're someone I turn to when help is urgently needed. You're sort of summarizing what the letter is. I realize now this is not the cover letter for the appeal I showed you before. It's for a different client, different organization of mine I've worked with. But you're summarizing the problem. Take a look at the letter. In it, I talk about how your year-end gift can help a soon-to-be mom have a healthy pregnancy, right? So this is the outcome, what the donor's gift will do. This is the beneficiary, soon-to-be mom. Over here, we have another example of a full-page reply device. I don't think that this had other ways to give on the back, but it's basically the same thing as what you saw, just a slightly different format from the other one. So this goes to mid-level donors. In the envelope, you have the cover letter, then you have the appeal, which is hopefully a two-page appeal. And then you have the full page reply device that's all folded together. Or I guess not folded together because you're putting it in a 9 by 12 envelope. Looking around here, I don't think I have oh, I do. Paper clip those pages together. If your envelope feels a little bit thicker, like it would with a paper clip, it's going to get opened up. That's a trick I learned from my friend John Lepp.
Hey, sorry, I just want to
Yeah.
triple click on the paperclip. Highest ROI spend in nonprofit fundraising. Add the paperclip. Give it some heft. People
Yeah.
often forget about direct mail. The most expensive thing in your direct mail program is it's not postage, it's not printing, it's you, right? It's like nonprofit staff. And so the making these things just a little bit more efficient is super helpful. One other thing you can do is I've seen this a couple times is not as many people sort of print out film and photographs that they used to, but
Mhm.
that's 3 by 5 glossy photo. honestly haven't done it in a long time. I think it costs like 6 cents a print.
Yeah,
If you were stuffing one of those that's like sort of, the staff waving or a bunch of kids or something beautiful from the land trust that you saw, like whatever it may be, also just a little bit more volume, a little bit different, throwing one of those in each will get you a really long way. It's a thing that can sort of, go up on the fridge. It feels a little bit more familial, right? Friendly than sort of, you would never get that. You would never get like a printed photo in a direct mail from like an auto shop, or whatever else
correct,
you might be getting. So
correct.
just think about these little things to add some texture, add some feeling, but don't forget the paper clip. All right.
Get the
It's
paper
the
clip. And shout
all
out to my friend Carrie Ann, who works for a cat shelter, cat rescue type place in Indiana. She found cat-shaped paper clips and sent them and paper clipped all of her year-end fundraising with the cat-shaped paper clips. It was amazing. You can find some really fun stuff to beef up these packages. Okay, major donor tip with mass donor tip with 15 minutes left. This is my third appeal. So I talked about this at the very beginning. If you have the capacity and the time and the Canva design skills, you can design a postcard in Canva and get it printed and mail it out to your donors. It is so simple. It can be very, very cheap. It's not going to raise a ton of money, but it can be really fun. And so do this if you're already sending an appeal in November and an appeal in the beginning of December. Um, don't send a postcard to your donors unless you're doing those two things and doing a lot of year-end emails, because this is not going to raise nearly as much money. A postcard won't raise nearly as much money as those two appeals. The number one reason a postcard won't work, regardless of when you send it, is you're not giving people a place to send a check back to you. You're not including an envelope and a reply device. A postcard is just going to be a postcard. It's going to have a QR code, but the vast, vast, vast majority of gift giving still comes in offline for most organizations. If you're an organization that skews towards the younger donor base, maybe you do some social justice work, whatever that may be, you may be the exception to that rule. But for almost all of us, the vast majority of our fundraising at year end, all year round, but especially at year end, is going to come in offline. So postcards aren't going to work as well. But in the last week of the year, if you mail this on December 24th and it gets into donors' mailboxes on the 26th to 27th, and it looks like this, oh, right, Scott, your gift will be doubled. Deadline December 31st. A little reminder action here, a QR code. I love, this is from Carrie Ann, a friend I just mentioned. Um, QR code goes right to the donation page, instructions on how to use the QR code. This is going to get noticed. Fewer people will scan the QR code than would open up an envelope and send back a check to you. But at year end, where you're looking like maybe we just need to get another $3,000, maybe we just need to get another 1,500 bucks. This can be a fun way to engage your donors at year end. Okay, that is my presentation. I did it with 13 minutes to spare. Q&A time. By the way, folks, if you want to come to the storytelling conference, you can save 50 bucks on your ticket. There's a code over there, Josh A50, that'll save you $50 on your ticket. We're November 13th, 14th, and 15th in San Diego, California. Going to be awesome. A lot more information about the conference on the website. And if you scan that QR code, you can join me and my friend Sarah Lundberg. I do a weekly webinar called Tactical Thursdays, more sort of tactical, practical stuff that you kind of saw here. We got a whole bunch of really great folks coming on in the next few months. Sarah and I do like free reviews. You could submit your fundraising. It's a hoot. Patrick has been on a bunch of times, and I know there's a bunch of people here who love Tactical Thursdays as well. That's all I got.
Oh, fun. Can't recommend this highly enough. I'm going to share my screen, do some quick housekeeping, and then we're gonna use the rest of the time all the way until 1 o'clock Eastern for questions. So bear with me for just one moment here. All right, y'all, you can see this? Josh, give me a thumbs up if you can see this.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so some quick resources. First, in the chat, we are going to drop a survey. That survey includes a chance to win the Heaven and Earth grocery store, which some of you have already read. You can still get a copy to give to your friends or not, which is one of Josh's very favorite books. So check that out. Second, next week, there is a session. Many of you know Dr. Russell James, the foremost academic in modern fundraising, and particularly focused on planned and larger gifts. A lot of the work that we do around smarter gifts comes out of research from Dr. James. He is also, some of you may know, sort of the former president of a Christian college and has a particular focus at times on Christian fundraising. So this is a less widely applicable, but if you are a Christian organization, this may be a really good fit. Everyone is welcome to come, right? So please feel free to join. But that will be the focus of this for Dr. James. And we are doing our best to help him out because he's helped so many of us out. So that is Thursday, the 12th, Thursday, the 18th at noon. So that is next Thursday. Then the following Tuesday on September 23rd, back at noon Eastern, so exactly 2 weeks from today, we have a panel with a series of experts who each work with dozens, if not more than 100 over the last 5 years, different nonprofits, particularly focused on what we call smart gifts around end of year. So exactly that thing that Josh showed in his major giving and exactly that thing we talked about that will drive much larger gifts. So please feel free to join that as well. So survey, etc. One last thing I will say is we have some new functionality, which is um, if you are interested, you can in the survey you can click that you would like what do we call it? Sort of a quick overview from someone at FreeWill about the FreeWill tools, and you can now sort of schedule directly. You can say yes, I'd love one, and I want it at Friday at 2 o'clock. So that is new
Sweet.
to us. Josh, we have a bunch of questions. If it's okay with you, we're going to dive in on some.
By the way, I turned off my screen share and I had 63 text messages. And a bunch of them were from my family Eagles text chat, but a bunch were from my colleagues. And thank you everybody who bought a book. Steph is like, I just got 42 orders in 5 minutes. So thank you guys for
Oh,
that.
good. People can't get enough Josh. I think that we need to double our annual Josh. Bit. Josh, first of all, there are a bunch of questions early on. I think, this, I think you scared people, to be honest, with the 3 emails on December 31st.
Ah,
Tell us how to not be scared.
Um, plan now, write them now, and schedule them so that you don't have to work on December 31st. That's the top line. Write them now and just schedule them to be sent.
And how do
Um,
you think about what each of those 3 emails says? Are they
yeah,
the
it's
same? Is it just countdown? Is it
It's the same email. So take the chaser email that you have, so the emailed version of your appeal, and that's the template, right? The first email you send on December 29th should be like a little bit shorter. Take out a little paragraph. Take out one or two paragraphs of that appeal. The email you send on December 30th should be a little bit shorter. So maybe now you take out the story that's in the center of your appeal. You're still asking donors to do the same thing: $6.25 to protect a child from an online predator, $30.50 to preserve an acre of wetlands, $7 to feed a family, whatever it may be. That's going to be consistent throughout all of your fundraising, but those emails are getting progressively shorter, progressively more urgent, and it's just a matter of cutting out from the initial email rather than creating something up out of whole cloth. By the
that
way,
makes
like, take whatever AI bot that you use, put your year-end appeal in, and say, please turn this into a series of 5 emails, each getting progressively shorter, each getting progressively more urgent, and it's done in 15 seconds.
And then Josh, what about the fear of unsubscribes?
Um, let's see. So the job of your email list is to turn people who are interested in your organization to donors. And if somebody unsubscribes, that's them saying, hey, I'm not a donor. And that is totally fine. If you're not getting unsubscribes, you are not asking your donors frequently enough.
That's
The
a great,
unsubscribes are good. Thanks for coming. Blessed Louise.
great point. We have a couple questions. I think you recommended time zones, and obviously on living on a spherical globe, like the question is time zones for whom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
I think what matters mostly is where you are. And if you are an organization that is somewhat local, then those emails should be, around 10 a.m. Local time. If you are a national organization and you have the capacity to send chunks of emails based on time zone, some CRMs will allow you to do that. I don't know if MailChimp or Constant Contact does. That's great too. Otherwise, that's why I say 10 a.m. because it's, mid-morning on the East Coast and it's early morning while people are drinking their coffee on the West Coast. It really depends on, excuse me, the size of your list.
That's right. And one thing I would say is if you are a smaller national organization, right? If you're like an Oklahoma food bank, do Oklahoma time zones.
Yeah,
If you are a national organization, but you don't want to chunk it up four ways, remember that 80% of the US population lives in Eastern and Central time zones. And so you might think like 10:30 Eastern, et cetera. It'll be a little bit early for the Californians, but generally we just have population centers, which is a historical fact, pushed east of the Mississippi. Um, and so there you go. Obviously, this is some of you are in Canada, some of you are in the UK, but same rule applies. Josh, you said, hey, rule of thumb is appeal one gets 100%, appeal two gets 30%. What's your best guess on appeal three?
That is a very good guess. I haven't seen enough testing on it, but not a lot. If you're doing that 10 and $3,000 thing, maybe this is like 600 or 700 bucks. It's gonna be not a lot, but people are gonna notice it. People are gonna scan that QR code, and maybe they'll, have had a New Year's drink by the time they scan that QR code. That'll be hung up on the refrigerator too, and be remembered in the
Um,
future. So not a lot, but it's fun.
Josh, I'm going to read a question from Bev, but there's sort of a similar question across. It says, we have a lot of donors who give when they register for a big event. Should we exclude them from the year-end ask? Is that what
Great,
we're asking? Or do we ask everyone who gives? This is their
great
first
question.
time working for a nonprofit that raises a lot of money at an event. And a
Yeah.
bunch of
So
other questions. Someone gives on December 3rd. Do we pull them out? What does that look like?
yep. So event donors and peer-to-peer donors are the least likely to make a second gift. That being said, at year end, people are especially generous. So I really encourage all of you to keep your event donors and your peer-to-peer donors in your donor universe. So they're getting your print appeals, they're getting all of your emails for 12 months. So absolutely, if somebody came to an event in February, they should get your year-end appeal. Hopefully, they've heard from you a couple of other times as well, and they've been thanked. If somebody, so absolutely. And then if they don't make a gift this year, don't mail them next year, right? So keep them just in event donors and peer-to-peer donors in your universe just for 1 year.
Yeah.
If somebody makes a gift to Giving Tuesday, do they get that second appeal? If you're able to suppress them from the print appeal, great. If not, don't sweat it. You can sometimes include a letter in that line in that second appeal that says something like, if your gift and this letter crossed in the mail, thank you, right? Should you pull them out from your year-end emails? No. From your year-end emails, only suppress donors who made a gift to like the last email or like made a gift after Christmas. And if you can't do that, that's totally fine because people know that these emails are often scheduled and you can't hold back everybody. And if they unsubscribe, great. That's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
I also think there's this interesting dynamic, Josh, when you say it's another opportunity for social proof. We know so many of our supporters are giving this year. If you got this gift and you've already processed, like, please accept our apologies or whatever it may
Yeah,
be. But it
social.
signals that like, oh, the norm is that many people who are receiving this letter have already given. So that's one quick shout out very briefly is if you haven't already, please fill out the survey. That will be very helpful to us. We're almost out of time. Josh, who signs these letters? Is it someone affiliated with the cause? Is it the board chair? Is it the ED? Is it the whole team? How do you
Mhm.
think about that?
These letters, all of your fundraising should come from one person, so it should always be an individual, not all of us. Um, Typically, traditionally, it's the highest ranking person at your organization. So, like the executive director, the CEO, something like that. I prefer a paid staff over a board chair. But if you're one of those organizations where the board chair is running the show, like then that's fine too. And if you're sending like more than 6 or 8 appeals a year, you can rotate in a beneficiary, somebody from the staff just for a little bit of variety. But it should almost always, and especially at year end, be the highest ranking person, the person with the most authority at your organization.
Yes. And Madison says we're a team of five. You can say on behalf of Josh, Sarah, Michael, Mark, and Tony, I want to extend the whole team here on behalf of, and then you sign it a single person because guess what? Nobody writes emails with 10 people.
Yeah.
The keyboards get too crowded, right? So you want to make sure this feels really, really normal.
Yeah.
Look, we're out of time. So, Josh, thank you. I mean, many of you are putting in the effort, spending the money, and yet taking a couple of the things that Josh is telling us about the way we structure narratives, about making sure that we're really getting those smart gifts in there for the major donors. Things like the $4.50 that you're going to spend this year on paper clips are going to raise you an extra $6,000. I mean, these are so valuable because the work's going in. And like, look, let's own it. Most of our direct mail programs could be better than they are. And often they could be better without more work from us or without more money, but just a
Hmm.
little bit of thought. And, I think we're just really lucky to have someone like Josh here who has worked across thousands of organizations doing direct mail. And so, knows what works and has seen it and has seen people discover new things, right? Like the world of direct mail is ever changing. And so, it's nice to have someone with such latitude and exposure there. So Josh, thank you so much.
Make
I
me blush,
hope
buddy.
can join me in thanking him. But this was just really, really awesome. I'll see many of you in 2 weeks as we dive a little bit deeper into some of those really big gifts and how to get some more transformative gifts. And then some of you, I'm sure, will join next Thursday with Dr. James, and he's awesome. It's a little bit more of a specialty webinar, so just making sure we have that caveat. But Josh, any final things you want to say?
I love you, Patrick. You're the best. Thanks for all that you do for the
Great.
community, buddy. Truly.
Really appreciate it, Josh. I think since the last Josh, a Villanova grad, since the last time
That's right.
we had you on, you got a Villanova Pope.
We do.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, generally,
Um,
generally good things happening over there. And Josh, remind us where you are in the world.
Kennett Square, Pennsylvania,
Right.
just outside of Philly. So
Just
got
outside
all
of
the
Philly.
Eagles and the Villanova love and the Phillies
I know.
love in this house.
There are very mixed feelings on the Eagles, just so
Uh,
you know. But everyone loves you despite that. All right. Say hi to your family for us.
sure
Take
will,
care.
man.
And thank you everybody for joining.
Be well. See you guys.